Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most powerful moments of the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, the destruction of the Crimea Bridge, also known as the Kerch Strait Bridge, an event that has shaken Moscow's confidence and changed the course of this conflict. What we're seeing here is not just a military strike, but a symbolic collapse of Vladimir Putin's pride, a structure that once stood as the ultimate display of Russian dominance, now turned into twisted steel and burning concrete. When this bridge was first unveiled in 2018, it was more than just an infrastructure project. It was Russia's declaration that Crimea was theirs forever. Built after the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, the bridge connected Russia directly to the peninsula, cutting off Ukraine's control and tightening Moscow's grip. Putin himself drove a bright orange truck across it during the inauguration, smiling for cameras and calling it a historic moment of unity. To him and to the Russian people, it symbolized permanence, the physical manifestation of power and victory. But power that relies on symbolism alone doesn't last forever. Fast forward to today, and the image couldn't be more different. Smoke rises from the same bridge that once glittered in Russian propaganda films. Huge sections of the roadway hang over the water, oil tankers burn on the rails, and emergency crews scramble in chaos. Ukrainian sources claim this was a calculated and precise strike, not just for strategic disruption, but to hit Putin where it hurts the most, his pride and illusion of control. The message was clear: even your most guarded, most iconic structure is not safe. Analysts say this strike had both psychological and logistical value. The bridge served as a lifeline for Russian forces stationed in southern Ukraine, carrying ammunition, fuel, and reinforcements into Crimea and onward to the Kherson front. By knocking out the bridge, Ukraine didn't just cut supply lines, it also exposed the vulnerability of Russian logistics and intelligence. Every attack that penetrates deep into Russian-controlled territory sends a chilling reminder to Moscow: nowhere is untouchable anymore. What makes this attack even more fascinating is the precision and timing. The explosion occurred in the early morning hours, when minimal civilian traffic was on the bridge. Satellite images later revealed that both road spans and a section of the rail line were heavily damaged. Experts believe the attack may have involved maritime drones, remotely operated explosive vessels guided through the Kerch Strait, a tactic Ukraine has been perfecting for months. If true, this operation demonstrates not only technical skill but strategic patience, the ability to strike when the moment has maximum symbolic impact. Russian media, at first, struggled to contain the narrative. For hours, state channels broadcast vague reports about a traffic incident. But as images began circulating online, it became impossible to hide the truth. Flames, explosions, and collapsed sections of the bridge flooded social media. The same platforms that once amplified Kremlin propaganda now turned against it. The footage went viral, and global headlines erupted. Suddenly, the symbol of Russian invincibility had fallen, and the world was watching. In Moscow, reactions were swift but conflicted. Officials called the strike an act of terrorism, promising revenge, but their tone revealed something deeper: shock and humiliation. For a regime built on the image of strength, admitting vulnerability is unacceptable. Yet there it was for all to see. Putin ordered immediate repairs, and within days, crews were seen welding steel and patching roads. But no amount of reconstruction can erase the psychological blow. It's one thing to fix concrete, it's another to rebuild lost confidence. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, celebrations broke out. Fireworks, flags, and cheers filled the night skies in Kiev, Odessa, and Lviv. People saw the event not merely as a tactical win, but as poetic justice, a moment of payback for years of aggression, missile strikes, and blackouts. For Ukrainians, the destruction of the Crimea Bridge symbolized hope. It was proof that David could indeed wound Goliath, that a smaller nation, armed with determination and precision, could challenge an empire built on fear. Strategically, the attack had far-reaching consequences. Russia relied heavily on the bridge to transport supplies into Crimea and onward to southern fronts like Melitopol and Kherson. With that route crippled, the Kremlin has been forced to reroute logistics through the long and vulnerable land corridor across occupied territories, exposing convoys to more Ukrainian strikes. NATO intelligence confirmed that Russian supply efficiency dropped significantly in the weeks following the explosion, leading to delays in reinforcements and fuel shortages on several fronts. This wasn't the first time the Crimea Bridge came under attack. A previous explosion in 2022 had already weakened its structural integrity, but this latest strike was far more devastating, showing that Ukraine had evolved its capabilities. Each attack has sent the same message: your power is not as secure as you think. For Putin, the bridge represented not just a military route but his personal legacy. To see it in ruins twice is a humiliation that no amount of propaganda can repair. Internationally, the reaction has been mixed. Western nations, while careful not to claim involvement, quietly applauded the operation as a legitimate military target. The European Union and the United States both reiterated that Crimea remains Ukrainian territory and that Russia's occupation is illegal. China and India, on the other hand, urged restraint, signaling growing discomfort with Russia's continued escalation. Even within Russia, whispers of frustration have begun to surface, not in the open, but in coded language from commentators and analysts who question how such a crucial asset could be hit again despite billions spent on defense. The military implications are equally significant. The loss of the bridge complicates Russia's ability to defend Crimea, especially if Ukraine advances toward the peninsula. Without reliable supply routes, any counteroffensive launched from Crimea becomes weaker and riskier. In a broader sense, it shifts the psychological balance of the war. Every victory, no matter how symbolic, strengthens Ukraine's narrative and weakens Russia's. But beyond strategy and politics, there's a deeper story here, one of pride, illusion, and the inevitable decay of power built on aggression. The Crimea Bridge was built to project strength, but its destruction reveals fragility. It's a metaphor for the war itself. A struggle where one side fights for survival and the other fights to preserve an image. Putin's Russia has relied heavily on grand displays, parades, speeches, nuclear posturing, yet, when confronted with reality, even its greatest symbols can crumble in seconds. Footage from the aftermath shows twisted rail lines, melted asphalt, and the eerie silence of a bridge that once buzzed with traffic. Engineers in Russia have begun assessing long-term structural damage, but experts say full restoration may take years. The repairs completed after the first attack were temporary. This time, the damage is deeper, both physically and politically. Every day the bridge remains closed or restricted is another day of embarrassment for the Kremlin. For Ukraine, this strike isn't just about destruction, it's about reclaiming narrative power. Since 2014, Russia has tried to define Crimea as permanently Russian, but now the very link that connected it to the mainland lies broken. The symbolism couldn't be clearer. In psychological warfare, perception is everything, and right now perception favors Ukraine. The world sees a nation refusing to bow down, finding creative and bold ways to hit back against overwhelming odds. In the days following the attack, Russian forces launched missile barrages against Ukrainian cities, attempting to portray strength. Yet the very need to retaliate so aggressively only underscored their insecurity. Every missile fired in anger becomes a confession of fear. Even Russian citizens, many of whom supported the war early on, are beginning to question how such high-value infrastructure could be repeatedly compromised. Fear, once the Kremlin's most powerful tool, is starting to shift directions. What happens next is uncertain. Some analysts believe Ukraine may follow this up with more strikes against supply hubs in Crimea, potentially isolating the peninsula completely. Others think the move was designed to test Russia's defenses and international reaction before a larger campaign. Whatever the motive, the message has been received worldwide. Ukraine is no longer fighting defensively, it's taking the war to the symbols of Russian power. History has a way of remembering moments like this. When empires crumble, it's rarely because of one battle. It's when the symbols that define them start to fall apart. The Berlin Wall didn't just separate two worlds. Its fall represented an entire ideology collapsing. The same can be said of the Crimea Bridge. What was once a proud symbol of expansion is now a reminder of limits, and that's what makes this event so powerful. It's not just about concrete and steel, it's about truth cutting through propaganda, reality overtaking illusion. As the smoke clears over the Kerch Strait, the message echoes across the world: no empire, no matter how powerful, is beyond reach. Ukraine's strike on the Crimea Bridge is more than a military success. It's a statement of resilience, intelligence, and strategic courage. The fall of Putin's pride shows that even the strongest symbols can burn, and that real power belongs not to those who build monuments of dominance, but to those who dare to challenge them.